the Channel 10 Breakfast Show on Friday, the 23rd of January. I'm Nikki Dean.
And I'm Michelle Eagleton.
And that was Alan, the bagpiper. And the reason he's here is because we're celebrating Burns Night. He's going to take part on Sunday, which is the 25th, and would have been the 240th birthday of Scot poet Robert Burns.
Yeah, so we are doing some Scottish celebrations. We're honorary Scots for the day. I've got my tartan on, which apparently is Bombay tartan. It's not real tartan, but I had a go.
And my bagpipes are just hiding down there. I'll get them out a bit later on.
And we're going to have some haggis. I've never, ever tried haggis in my life, so I'm going to be intrigued as to what's actually in it.
Yeah, me too. Find out that bit later on.
Yeah, and in a few minutes, we're going to be catching up with the latest sport headlines with Andy Dickman. Very good weekend for sport, especially one United team. Come on, the lads. But first up, today's news report from Georgia Calvin-Smith.
Good morning. An investigation has decided that Michael Todd's complicated private life didn't affect his job as Chief Constable of Greater Manchester. The 10-month inquiry found that although he had a string of affairs with women working in the force, it didn't have any impact on his policing duties.
A total of 150 people were interviewed as part of the inquiry led by West Midlands Chief Constable Sir Paul Scott-Lee. The investigation established that Mr Todd had affairs with 5 women employed by GMP, but there was no evidence they affected his performance as Chief Constable. It's understood the inquiry team was told by one interviewee that his affair with one woman based at Force headquarters was a clear abuse of his position. None of the women at GMP with whom Mr Todd had an affair agreed to be interviewed, and because the investigation wasn't a criminal inquiry, the women could only be asked to give interviews. Evidence sent to police as part of Mr Todd's inquest linked him to 38 women, but the inquiry team concluded the vast majority were just associations or friendships. Mr Todd was found dead on a Welsh mountainside last March. Reports at the time suggested he was in turmoil about his chaotic private life, convinced that a 3-year affair with the boss of Greater Manchester Chamber of Commerce, Angie Robinson, was about to be exposed. The report, to be presented to the police authority next week, recommends that a support network should be available so that officers who feel under stress can get help.
Sacked superhead Jean Els has 28 days to decide whether to appeal after she was banned from running schools. Dame Jean was found guilty of professional misconduct by a disciplinary panel in Birmingham. She transformed Whalley Range High School for Girls from one of the worst attended schools in the country into one of Manchester's top performers. But she was sacked in 2006 following allegations of mismanagement and nepotism. The General Teaching Council Committee, considering her case, said that Dame Jean's behaviour had fallen short of the standards of integrity expected of a teacher. The UK recession is expected to be made official today, with figures predicted to reveal a sharp reduction in output in the fourth quarter of 2008. Economists are forecasting that the economy shrank by at least double the decline seen in the previous quarter. A recession is technically defined as 2 successive quarters of negative output, and the Governor of the Bank of England has predicted that it will continue into the first part of this year, in what could be the biggest decline since the Second World War. Community Secretary Hazel Blairs has agreed to a scheme that will mean that hundreds of homes in Openshaw will be demolished, even though a number of people living there would rather see their homes renovated. Around 550 terraced houses in Toxteth Street in Openshaw will be bulldozed to make way for a £65 million regeneration scheme. Compulsory purchase orders will be used to force homeowners still living there to sell to developers. 3 years after it was deemed as failing, Buell Hill High School in Salford has been granted special status for visual arts. Staff pulled off a masterstroke by helping all pupils obtain high marks in art, as well as showcasing their work in prestigious galleries. The achievement has meant massive investment and improvements for the once crumbling school.
Well, it's changed beyond all recognition, really, because we're in a new multi-million-pound school with fantastic resources. We have state-of-the-art ICT suites. We've got state-of-the-art art rooms, catering for specialist subjects in ceramics. And, you know, hopefully with our new status, we're going to be heading towards building photographic suites. So the whole kind of look of the school has changed, and its ethos has changed as well. The students' uniforms they're in blazers, they're much smarter. So yeah, it's on the up, it's looking good.
But before, we got this art course, I didn't really know what I wanted to do in college, and doing the courses helped me with what I want to do in the future.
I think it's great that we've got it, and I'm really proud because it's the same that our work's done it, and that we're going to get a photography studio and everything. So it's going to help us with our studies in the future.
And don't look now, but your money is disappearing out your front door, and your windows, and your walls, and your roof. In fact, all over your house. If you don't believe me, Kevin Duffy's got more.
What you're looking at there is the colour of money. Each colour on this thermal image of a house represents different amounts of heat escaping. Heat that the householder has already paid for, expensively. These chilling facts are being brought home to people living in parts of Swinton, where the local council has commissioned a firm of experts to carry out energy efficiency audits of homes using special thermal imaging cameras. So, how does thermal imaging actually work? Well, it's very complex, but in simple terms, this is me on an ordinary camera, and this is how I look on a thermal imaging camera. The white bits, like my head, show where there's lots of heat escaping, and the darker bits, like my jacket, show that there's less heat escaping. The scan van can measure the energy efficiency of up to 1,000 homes an hour. After it's been passed, residents will be sent a thermal image of their home and details of insulation offers available. Let's say I have my house scanned and I see these reds and yellows and greens. What can I do then to try and reduce this heat loss?
OK, to reduce the heat loss out of the walls, then we can look at cavity wall insulation, which is dramatically going to change the effect of the heat coming out of the walls. We can look at loft insulation as well, and also the council can also give advice on double glazing, just to make sure your house is properly insulated, so we can save money in the future.
What you might not realise is that there are various grant aid schemes to help with the cost of home insulation. Why not contact your local council? You might qualify. I'm Kevin Duffy for Channel M News.
And that's all from me on today's breakfast show. Join me at 12 for our live lunchtime bulletin. Until then, we're heading over to Polly for what's happening with the weather.
Who needs to know what the weather's doing? It's probably raining anyway. It's time for our final sporting bulletin. Andy Dickman joins us now, and we'll start with the blue side of town. I think it's pretty fair to say that it's been frantic there this week, to say the least.
An eventful week even by Manchester City standards. We've seen down the years so many stories coming out of Eastlands. This week in particular, though, I mean, even the last few months. Kaká was all set to sign at the weekend. That's bitten the dust earlier on in the week, and of course Robinho's gone away with City to this training camp in Tenerife this week. He's also gone missing as well. But it's not all bad news. Mark Hughes has been speaking to our City correspondent of the MEN, Chris Bailey, and he said he's got no regrets at all. He's pretty happy with the way things have gone, and he thinks things will progress for Manchester City. Chris Bailey wrote that report, and we also spoke to him on the news last night.
If anything, the events of the week with Kaká's turning down the offer, or Milan or City pulling their offer out and walking away from the Milan deal, and Kaká not coming, and Robinho's disappearance has brought them together in a strange way rather than the other way around. There's a bit of a siege mentality going on, and they're all pulling together, and certainly from what we've seen here, they're all in very good spirits.
Thankfully, then, it doesn't seem to have settled things over at the City camp, then.
It always seems like a bit of a circus. Through no fault of Manchester City, I mean, the events that have taken place in the last few months, they're inevitable, really. Manchester United are the richest club, and Manchester City rather the richest club in the world. Before slip there. Richest club in the world, and they're going to be linked with all kinds of players, and they have got the intent to back up the money that they've got. They tried to get Kaká, they didn't get him in the end. He's playing for arguably one of the biggest clubs in the world. It was just a bit of a farce the way it all finished in the end, because there was such sort of media intense spotlight on it. Didn't happen in the end. They got Craig Bellamy, perhaps not as big a high-profile signing. They got Robinho in the last window. About a week or so to go of this window as well. I think there'll be a couple more big signings coming to City, and I think in 2 or 3 years' time, City will be regularly bidding for Champions League football. That's what they're aiming for. Not just that, aiming for top spot. Maybe eventually they'll get there. Of course, Manchester United are the benchmark in terms of English football, European football, world football. They've got all of those crowns at the moment, but their attention's turned to the FA Cup tomorrow. They've got Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah,
Tottenham had a Well, Tottenham had a really difficult week, really. The Carling Cup against Burnley, they were 4-1 up from the first leg, were 3-0 down after 90 minutes, on the verge of going out, eventually pulled it back with a couple of goals late on in extra time. So it's been a really difficult few weeks for Spurs and few months. Harry Redknapp's come in, hasn't quite happened yet. They were even bottom of the table last week, but this is a real lifeline for Tottenham Hotspur as well. Big tradition in the FA Cup for Tottenham. They'll be looking to progress, but he's also said, Harry Redknapp, maybe he's going to rest a few of his star names tomorrow, so maybe their priorities lie in the Premier League. United, though, they'll be going for the quadruple. Great week for them. They've beaten Derby. They're in the final of the Carling Cup. They've won the World Club Cup back in Japan a month ago. Going for the Premier League, top of the table now. So it's all going well for Manchester United, and they'll be hoping to complete this remarkable quadruple and go one better than they did in 1999.
You're predicting a win for them against Spurs this weekend,
yes,
then, aren't
I'm
you?
going to go for 2-0. Of course, it's not just the only game concerning our local sides. It certainly is in terms of the FA Cup. United, the only team carrying the flag for the Greater Manchester clubs. There's a great little local derby on at Boundary Park tomorrow. Oldham, Stockport, going for a draw in that as well.
Get off the fence, Andy
No.
Dickman. 0-0, you said?
0-0, yeah.
You don't think it's going to be a particularly exciting game then?
Well, no, I think it'll be a good game, but I just think it'll be tight. Both going for promotion to the Championship. Stockport came up from League Two last season. Oldham have been going pretty well in League One for the last couple of seasons. They'll be looking to go one step further and progress to the Championship. We've also got a full complement of games in League Two as well. Altrincham go to Burton Albion. They're top of the Blue Square Premier. So it's a great action-packed weekend for our local clubs. Rugby Union, you've got Sale Sharks in action against Clermont in the Heineken Cup. What else we got? Ice hockey, Manchester Phoenix taking on the Cardiff Devils. A packed weekend, hopefully success for all our teams.
Absolutely, and Andy Murray as well, he's playing.
Andy Murray, yeah, an adopted Brit, even though he's...
We love him right now, don't we?
Yes, well, he's Scottish, I'm getting shouted at here, but he caused a bit of a stir when he held up that Croatia flag a couple of years ago, but I think if he wins the Australian Open, which he is the favourite to do, he'll suddenly be accepted as a fully fledged Brit.
Absolutely. Andy, thank you very much.
No problem.
More sport on next week's show. Time now for a break. Coming next, we'll be celebrating Burns Night, which takes place this Sunday. And here's a taste of what's to come with those wonderful Scottish pipes.